Welcome to the Evelyn Y. Davis Studios at the National Press Foundation. Coming up, some straight talk about a complicated process, claiming Social Security benefits. Americans have questions about when to claim, what to claim, whose benefits to claim. We've got answers right now. The National Press Foundation is a nonprofit dedicated to helping journalists cover complex topics with depth and accuracy. Our mission includes journalists around the U.S. and around the world. I'm Linda Topping-Streitveld, Director of Programs at the National Press Foundation. Viewers today can type questions into the chat window that appears under the webinar screen. You can log in or simply sign in as a guest. I'll monitor the questions and we'll answer as many as we can. I'm here today with financial journalist Mary Beth Franklin. She's a contributing editor at Investment News and a veteran of decades of financial reporting. Mary Beth, welcome.
Thank you, Linda. I'm thrilled to be here.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. You know, a lot of people these days, especially younger people, may feel that Social Security is not going to be there for them, so they shouldn't even worry about it. Is that true?
I think Social Security will always be there for future generations of Americans because it's the most successful and most popular federal program in history. Now, that's not to say there might not be changes to benefits going forward. Social Security is facing a long-term financial problem. The trust fund that funds some of those benefits is due to run out around 2033. But I firmly believe, even though recent Congresses have not been really good about getting critical legislation passed, this is something that's important enough that they will address in time. And frankly, old people vote, and they know that.
Okay, so we need to keep paying attention. If you are close to retirement and you're starting to wonder, what is Social Security going to mean to me? How can you find out?
Well, the first thing you do is Social Security Administration actually has a fabulous website. It is ssa.gov. That, of course, stands for Social Security Administration.government. And if you go to that webpage, right on front on the homepage, you're going to see My Account. It used to be people would get benefit estimates in the mail, usually 3 months before their birthday. Well, that was a big budget outlay. SSA cut back on that, and now you can set up your own personalized account, which is really much better because it's a real-time reflection of your benefits based on your personal work experience, and it's going to tell you what you will likely get at the earliest possible age of 62, at your full retirement age, whether that's 66, 67, or someplace in between, and what would happen if you delayed to the oldest age of 70. It's a powerful document.
So I can actually go to this website and find my whole work history back to that first job when I was 15.
And you want to do that because sometimes there's a mistake. Okay. And if you know you worked last year and it says 0, hey, that's a problem. You want to contact Social Security and say, we have a problem with my earnings records here, because Social Security will base your benefit on your top 35 years of earnings. Right. Not the last 35 year, but the top. So that for every year you're making more money, it might replace a year when you were flipping burgers or delivering newspapers.
Right, very good. So I think from a journalistic perspective, this is good to be thinking about because lots of readers out there are not aware of this information, and this is one basic way that you can help your audience. So I know you've got some slides, and they're going to take us through some of this information in a basic way. We're very happy to take questions. I want to make sure that our audience members know that they can type their questions into that chat box at any time, and we'll take them as they come in.
Let me tell you a little story of why I got so interested in Social Security.
Sure.
Back when I was the tax and retirement editor at Kiplinger's magazine. I'm the youngest of 5 children, and my brothers and sisters are much older than I am, and I would watch them one at a time claim Social Security benefits as early as they could at age 62, continue to work, and complain that they were giving benefits back. And I thought, well, that's stupid. Let me look into that. And that's when I discovered back in 2008 that there were these creative ways to claim Social Security and maximize lifetime benefits. And despite the fact this is seeping into the public consciousness, the majority of Americans still claim Social Security benefits at age 62 just because they can,
Right.
even though it means their benefits are permanently reduced for the rest of their lives. And the difference between claiming at the earliest age of 62 and waiting till the latest age of 70 is a 76% difference in your benefits. Now, in an era where very few people have the guaranteed income of a pension, and many people haven't saved as not much as hopefully they should have, this guaranteed cost of living adjustment Social Security benefit is really important. For most Americans, it's bigger than their 401k balance, it's bigger than the equity in their home, it's bigger than any investment account they have. So that's why I'm going to go through some of these slides. And the first thing I want people to know is that when it comes to claiming Social Security benefits, timing is everything.
Okay, so this really is information that we need to pay attention to, and it's maybe the most important financial information some of us ever get.
Absolutely. And the difference between when you claim benefits for an individual can mean the difference of tens of thousands of dollars over your lifetime. And for married couples, we're talking $100,000 or more over their joint lifetime. So this is a really big decision. Now, for single people, it's a simpler decision in that you don't have to worry about the impact of your benefits on a spouse because you don't have one. So the decision of when you want to claim really should be based on your health, your wealth, and whether you plan to keep working. Most people don't realize that if you claim Social Security benefits before your full retirement age, which right now is 66 for anyone born from 1954 through 43 through 1954.
Okay.
So I'm the last one. I just turned 60 and I'm in that 1954 year.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And that if you claim Social Security benefits before your full retirement age and continue to work, you are subject to something called an earnings cap. That means if you earn too much money, which this year is defined as about $15,480, you earn more than that, you're going to start forfeiting benefits. Now, they're not gone forever. Once you reach your full retirement age, Social Security will calculate your benefits to restore those that you have temporarily lost. But at the same time, you have forfeited the chance to engage in some of these creative claiming strategies that I'm going to explain, and that could be a big mistake.
So let me just clarify. If you claim early and you lose benefits because you're over the earnings cap, how does Social Security give those back to you? Does it come to you in some lump sum check when you hit your full retirement age?
What will happen is, as this slide will show, your age matters. Yes, anyone can collect benefits as early as 62, but if your full retirement age is 66, it means you're getting a 25% haircut.
Right.
If you wait till your full retirement age, you get 100% of your promised benefits. And if you delay up until age 70, you get this bonus of 8% per year for every year you defer between 66 and 70. So let's go back to this idea of I've collected as early as possible at age 62. I've gotten a 25% haircut. I'm now getting a benefit worth 75% of my full retirement age benefit. And I keep working. And I make more than the earnings cap. Well, let's say over the 4 years between 62 and 66, I've given back the equivalent of 24 months of benefits, 2 years of benefits. Well, when I get to 66, Social Security is going to look at my record and say, well, we see that you retired at 62 and took a 25% haircut. But since you gave back 2 years of benefits, we're going to pay you going forward as if you claimed at 64 instead of 62. So you're not going to get a 25% haircut going forward. It's going to be about 12.5. So that's how the benefits are restored going forward. But as I mentioned, if you claim before your full retirement age, you're giving up a valuable chance to maximize these lifetime benefits. And if you don't know what your full retirement age is, take a look at this chart. It will tell you, based on your birth year, what your full retirement age is. Right now, it's 66. It will gradually go up by 2 months per year until we hit people who are born in 1960 or later. Their full retirement age is 67. That also means their haircut for taking benefits early is greater. If my haircut for taking it at age 62 is 25%, if my full retirement age was 67 and I can still take it at 62, but it's going to be a 30% cut. So it's an even bigger decision for those people born in 1960 or later. Now, we always hear about the need for future Social Security reform, and I do believe at some point Congress may choose to gradually raise that full retirement age even higher, given the fact that our life expectancies are so much longer than when this law was signed into being in 1935. But we're talking today's 4-year-olds might have to wait till 70. I think they'll adapt. People can do anything if given a long enough lead time. What we don't want to happen is to surprise people with a change in the law when it's too late for them to make any changes. So this is my mantra, 66 is the magic age. I tell people this for 3 reasons. One, you collect the full retirement age benefits that your estimated benefits tells you when you create your own account at Social Security.
Right.
The earnings cap that we just discussed no longer applies. It goes away at your full retirement age, which means you can collect Social Security benefits and continue to work without losing any benefits. But most importantly, that's the age you must wait till your full retirement age in order to exercise some of these creative claiming strategies. Now, I say 66 is the magic age because right now 66 is the full retirement age. If your full retirement age is actually larger, just substitute your number, whether it's 66 in 2 months or 67. So let's talk about some of these creative strategies after I explain the earnings cap. The earnings cap, if right now you are collecting Social Security benefits before your full retirement age and continue to work, and you earn more than $15,480, Social Security will withhold $1 in benefits for every 2 over that limit. So that essentially means if you make more than about $46,000 a year, you're going to forfeit all your benefits.
Makes
Again,
no sense at
right?
all.
It just doesn't make sense, in my opinion, to collect Social Security benefits early if you plan to keep working. Now, there's actually another rule that in the year you reach your full retirement age, in the months leading up to your 66th birthday, there's actually a more generous rule that's much higher. And then once you reach your full retirement age, the earnings cap goes away completely. So if possible, I recommend people wait until at least their full retirement age to collect benefits if they plan to keep working. Now, let's go on to lesson number 1. If you plan to keep working, in most cases, it just makes no sense to collect Social Security benefits early. Right. Not only are you get a reduction in benefits, but you're going to give some of them back. Right. And don't think you can pull a fast one on Social Security. They talk to the IRS. What they'll say is if you claim Social Security benefits early, they'll say, do you plan to keep working? And if so, how much do you expect to make? This way, they'll be able to estimate in advance how much of your benefit to withhold. And once the earnings cap is satisfied, then they'll pay your benefits. If you don't tell them and you earn money, you're going to find yourself owing them money after the fact. And it may be really difficult to come up with $20,000 or $30,000 to pay back Social Security. So always be honest, they will catch up with you.
Is there any fine in addition to the payback amount?
That's an excellent question. No, there isn't a fine, but you do have to pay it back.
Got it.
And sometimes Social Security will create a payment system because a lot of people just don't have that much cash lying around, but it does pay, to be honest. And that also means if when you collected benefits early at 62 with no intention to work, and then you get a job, inform them so they can adjust your benefits.
Right.
So there are exceptions to this rule. Generally, Social Security, while I don't call it an entitlement, because you have earned this. If you look at that, my account statement at Social Security, you will see how much you have paid in FICA taxes over your lifetime. So you have earned this, but at the same time, it is a safety net. And if you need the money, collect it. For example, you may have planned to collect at 66 and then you lose your job at 62. And frankly, it's sort of hard to find another job at 62. That may be a good time to collect benefits early. Or if you're in poor health, all the assumptions of waiting to your full retirement age or later is based on the idea that you will be there to collect it. I like to tell people you must be present to win. You know, if you have a dire health prognosis, go ahead and collect it early. You'll probably need it.
Makes sense.
Now let's go on to some other facts here. Now, married couples have the most flexibility when it comes to claiming Social Security benefits, and they should make this decision as a household rather than two separate benefits. It's something to coordinate their benefits to maximize the household income over their lifetime.
Right.
Now, in most cases, and there's a lot of academic research on this, the higher earning spouse, and I'm going to say the husband in this case, but Social Security is gender neutral. Let's say the higher earning spouse is the husband. It's going to benefit the couple if he can wait up until age 70 to get this big benefit, because his benefit's going to be worth 132% of what it would have been at his full retirement age.
Right.
Let's put some numbers to that. If he was entitled to $2,000 a month at his full retirement age of 66, and he waits until age 70 to collect, he gets a bump up of 8% per year between 66 and 70. So instead of getting $2,000 a month, he's going to get $2,640 a month.
It's a big difference.
It's huge. And that provides a bigger base for future cost of living adjustments, meaning each year if there's a 3% cost of living adjustment, that's going to be applied to a much bigger base. And the other part of that is when one spouse dies, the highest Social Security benefit goes on as the survivor benefit, and the smaller benefit goes away. So if he has waited until the highest age of 70 to collect, he's not only gotten the biggest benefit for himself and for the couple during their lifetime, but it's also maximizing a survivor benefit. Now, having said that, if he's waiting till 70, it doesn't necessarily mean that his wife should wait till 70. In many cases, in a traditional couple, she might have earned less. It might make sense for her to collect a reduced benefit early, because even though her benefit's reduced, it's bringing money into the household for possibly 8 additional years if they're the same age. And it's also assuming she's not working, because again, she would be subject to the earnings cap. And here's what so many people don't understand. Even if she collects reduced retirement benefits early, retirement benefits and survivor benefits are two separate pots of money. And even though her retirement benefits were permanently reduced, if her husband later dies and she steps up to a survivor benefit, it will not be reduced. It's a different benefit.
So that would be his maximum age 70 benefit.
Exactly, and she would get 100% of that as long as she was at least full retirement age at the time.
Right.
So that's a really important strategy to keep in mind. So having said this, that the higher earner might wait until 70 and the lower earner may want to collect early, there's room for what I call magic in between.
Okay.
And let's talk about some of these magic strategies. And this is why it's going to be magic. The spousal benefit, the maximum spousal benefit, is 50% of the worker benefit. That's assuming the spouse is at least full retirement age. She can get it earlier, but it's going to be reduced.
Right.
The maximum survivor benefit that we just discussed is 100%. If she is at least full retirement age, she can get it earlier, but it's reduced. So in a few minutes, we're going to talk about benefits for divorced spouses, and this idea of a 50% spousal benefit and 100% survivor benefit just proves that your ex is worth twice as much dead than alive. And I say that having been married 36 years.
I know this isn't an issue for you, Marita.
But it's an issue for a whole lot of people. And
Absolutely.
I think it's every journalist's duty writing for their local paper or their local website to make sure that divorced spouses know the rules.
Absolutely.
Because we always hear about gray divorce, we hear about the poverty level, particularly among older women. And so many of them don't know that if they were married at least 10 years, are divorced and currently single, they can collect on their ex just as if they're still married.
Right.
So let's go back to some more of the basics here. Here are my magic strategies. Now you will hear some people, particularly those who are selling software to consumers or financial advisors of how to claim Social Security benefits. They will tell you this is so complicated. There's 800 different choices, or there's 8,000 different choices depending on the age of the spouses, etc. Well, it's really not that hard. There's basically two magic strategies. The key is you must be at least full retirement age to engage in them. The first and most powerful is called file and suspend. What that means is if I'm at least full retirement age, I can say to the Social Security Administration, I want to file and suspend. I'm opening my Social Security record, but I'm saying, hey, but don't pay me my benefit. I want to earn those 8% per year bonus benefits up until age 70. So I'm suspending my benefit. Now, why would I want to do this? It's because I might have a spouse that could benefit from a spousal benefit. And by filing for my benefit, I have now triggered a spousal benefit. That is the most common use of file and suspend. But there's two other uses. We're seeing a lot of not only second marriages, but second families. And it's not uncommon for an older father, maybe 66 years old, to have a child or two that are young.
Right.
If I am a father filing and suspending at 66, my benefit can keep growing, but now my minor dependent children are also entitled to a benefit worth half of what I'm getting.
That is really important.
That is really important. I jokingly call this the Viagra College Fund because, again, in 1935, this probably wasn't a big issue. We're now seeing lots of older fathers with younger children. And I often tell people, because the money must be used for the child's benefit, but if you don't need the cash now, you pop that in a 529 plan and you've just paid for Harvard. Now, families with more than one children are subject to something, the family maximum amount. You can't have 15 kids and they're all going to get half of your benefit.
Right.
But if you have one and possibly even a younger spouse who's taking care of that child, they can both get benefits.
Now, what about grandparents who have custody of grandchildren and are raising them? Can they also trigger Social Security benefits for the grandchild?
In some cases, and that's a great question because, again, we are seeing so many grandparents raising their grandchildren. A couple things have to be satisfied. The assumption is the child first has to be a minor, under age 18,
Right.
or 19 if still in high school. The child must be their dependent, which is usually defined as the parent's child is either disabled or deceased. And the child must be the grandparent's dependent before the grandparent starts collecting benefits. So you can't claim benefits and suddenly decide you're going to have a dependent grandchild.
Right.
So it is possible. Right. And I would certainly encourage any grandparents in this situation to contact Social Security and see if it's possible. Now, the third reason someone might file and suspend, and this is something that single people really should be aware of. When you file and suspend, not only are you saying, I'm opening my Social Security record, but don't pay me until later. It acts as an insurance policy. You can, at any time between 66 and 70, say to Social Security, because I filed and suspended, I have now changed my mind. Pay me a lump sum going back to the day I filed and suspended. So let's say you're 66, you file and suspend, you're single. At 68, you get a dire medical diagnosis.
Right.
You're not worried about a spouse. You're not worried about a survivor, and suddenly longevity is the least of your worries.
Right.
You might want to say, boy, 2 years worth of Social Security benefits in a lump sum might come in handy.
That's right. I could take that cruise
Exactly.
in my last year, or I could pay my medical bills.
Exactly. But the difference is if you opt for the lump sum, that is instead of getting delayed retirement credits. It's
Right.
an either or.
Right. So if you're suddenly cured, you're going to have a reduced benefit for as long as you live.
You would at least get your full retirement age benefit, but you wouldn't get that big bump up.
Got it.
So those are the three magic reasons you would want to use file and suspend. The second one is called filing a restricted claim for spousal benefits only. And that assumes your spouse has filed. That says to Social Security, don't pay me my benefit, pay me half of my spouse's benefit. Pay me that spousal benefit for the next 4 years while my own benefit continues to grow. Now, of course, that assumes your spouse has already claimed. So those are the two magic strategies, but the key is you must be 66 in order to use them.
Right. That magic age really counts.
It really does. And it's the most common question I get from people. Great, I'm going to file and suspend at 62. Nope, wait, you got to wait for the magic age. Right. Now, for example, if you file and suspend at 66 and your spouse is younger, she can collect a spousal benefit that's reduced. She doesn't have to be 66. It's only the person that's exercising the magic strategy.
And this could work if, for example, the younger spouse wanted to file and suspend, the older spouse is still working, so they're both past that magic age, but the older person wants to continue working and the younger one doesn't. The younger one could file and suspend, and then could the older one who's still working claim a spousal benefit?
That is a perfect question, and that's what I call the combo strategy. And
Combo strategy.
Combo strategy, and that tends to work for what I call the power couples, where people have similar Social Security benefits. They're both working and maybe planning to continue to work. And now, here's an example. Again, I'm going to do some math. I hope it'll make your head explode. Let's say you have a husband and wife who's the same age. They're both 66, and they're both entitled to $2,000 a month. In this scenario, one of them could file and suspend at 66, which says, I'm filing for Social Security, but don't pay me, let my benefit keep growing. The second one, also 66, could say, whoa, I'm full retirement age too. I want to restrict my claim to spousal benefits only. So she'll get half of his benefits. That's $1,000 a month, times 12 months, times 4 years. That's $48,000. And when they turn 70, they can both switch to their full retirement age benefit, which would now be worth $2,640 a month, times two people, times 12 months. That's over $63,000 a year in guaranteed cost of living adjusted Social Security benefits for the rest of their life.
Yeah, that's a big number. And they'll be getting that cost of living increase based on the higher number.
Right. And again, when you have people who don't have pensions or other guaranteed sources of income, this is a very valuable strategy.
It is. And before we go to the next slide, let's talk for a minute about pensions. You were mentioning the power couple, and of course it's the power couple that's most likely to have a pension, but anybody who has been working for a government or a big company for a long time might have a pension, and so they might feel my Social Security is not such a big deal because I've got this pension I can count on. Now we see things happening in Detroit. We see some states looking at their pension systems and thinking about making changes. How confident can we be that our pension will be there for us?
Well, we hope it will be there, but you're right. We're in the midst of some major change. Back in 1974, Congress passed the ERISA, which protected pensions, and it created the Pension Benefit Guaranty Corporation that in the event a pension failed, that this government insurance agency would be there to back up the pensions. We now see in a lot of state and local public employee pension plans that they have overpromised and underfunded those pension benefits. The belief was always that was a promise that couldn't be broken, and people were thoroughly convinced they would get the full amount. We are now seeing in Detroit, maybe that's not true. We are now seeing in what they call multiple employer pension plans, things like trade unions and Teamsters, that those pensions, some of them are underfunded, and Congress is actually looking at the possibility that would let the employers fund them at a lower level. We don't know where this is going to end up, but it sends a bit of a chill for anybody who's expecting a pension.
Yeah, and it does, especially since I believe they're now looking at the possibility of reducing pensions for people who are already getting them or who are on the brink of starting to get them. So this is not, as you said earlier, 20 years before retirement when you have some time to plan. There's a possibility that benefits will be reduced very close to that age, and that's frightening.
It is frightening because we've already seen this happen with retiree health benefits. And the difference was, in the past, pensions were guaranteed, but retiree health benefits were merely promised. And as we've seen the change in our health insurance and health care delivery systems, a lot of employers have backed off those promises of employer-provided health benefits for life. Some of them will supply it until someone becomes eligible for Medicare. But now we're seeing backing off that. It is possible we could see the same thing happen to pensions. We're just going to have to wait and see. I don't think we'll ever see that happen with Social Security, which makes it even more important.
Right. Okay.
Let's see what else we have on some of our basics here. We talked about our magic strategies of file and suspend, filing a restricted claim for spousal benefits only, or as you rightly pointed out, a combo strategy for a power couple. Let me talk about this bonus for waiting, this 8% per year in what they call delayed retirement credits that you get for each year you delay between your full retirement age up until age 70. So if your full retirement age is 66 and you wait till 70, it means you get a 32% bounce. If your full retirement age is 67, you only have 3 years to earn those benefits.
Right.
So you're getting a 24% bounce, yet another way that younger Americans are seeing their benefits scaled back. But let me explain who gets these benefits and why they're so important. When I was a United Press International reporter on Capitol Hill covering the Social Security reform in 1983, this wasn't a big deal. This was 3% a year. Back in the days when we saw double-digit interest rates on our savings account, nobody in their right mind delayed taking Social Security for 3% a year. But the members of that commission, which was chaired by Alan Greenspan, said, what can we do with Americans living so much longer to get them to delay Social Security and get a bigger benefit? Let's build in an incentive into these delayed retirement credits. So they made it that the delayed retirement credits, which used to be 3%, would increase a 0.5 percentage point over a period of time up until it hit the statutory limit of 8%. That hit in 2008. Gee, what else happened in 2008? We had the biggest stock market meltdown we had seen in our lifetime. We saw the Federal Reserve put the brakes on interest rates, and we continue to see interest rates lower than we've seen any other time. So suddenly, a chance to get a guaranteed 8% return, you can't get that anyplace else. Sure, you could invest in the stock market and hope you get 8% or better, but from a guarantee, this is the only deal out here. And some of the finest minds in public policy have called this a smoking hot deal. So if you can afford to delay and you're healthy enough to delay, it may make sense for some people to wait until age 70. But let me also explain who gets these 8% credits, because that's really confusing to people. It only applies to the worker benefit. Okay? Your retirement benefit will increase 8% a year. The spousal benefit does not increase 8% a year. The maximum spousal benefit is 50% of the worker's benefit if the spouse collects it at her full retirement age or higher, less if she collects earlier. But, as I mentioned before, while a spousal benefit is worth 50%, a survivor benefit is worth 100%, including those delayed retirement credits.
So this is where that separate pot of money that you referred to comes in.
Exactly.
And of course, you know my next question.
Which is?
Does the divorced spouse also get 100% of a survivor benefit?
Absolutely. Again, with the basic rules of if your marriage lasted at least 10 years, if you are divorced and you are currently single, you can claim Social Security on your ex's earnings record, which would be a maximum of 50% of his or her benefit at your full retirement age. And if your ex dies, you get to collect a survivor benefit worth 100% of your ex's benefit, even if he remarried. The key is you're single. And there's even this little exception that if you wait until age 60 or later to remarry, even though you're married to somebody else and your ex dies, you get to collect the survivor benefit on your ex, even if you're still married to somebody else. You can't get two benefits at once, but you can always get the larger of the two. I do a lot of public speaking to consumers and to financial advisors, and I tell them this story. You know, people are worried about the long-term financing of Social Security benefits, and they think it's about the trust funds. It's not. It's about divorce. Here's the scenario. John and Mary are married. They're married for 10 years. They get divorced. Mary remains single. John marries his secretary, Susie. They're married for 10 years. They get divorced. Susie remains single. John goes to a club and he meets Tiffany. Tiffany's 30. They get married. Now they have a 2-year-old. And John drops dead. Who gets Social Security benefits?
Everybody.
Everybody. The first ex-wife who was married 10 years and is still single. The second ex-wife who was married at least 10 years and is still single. The minor dependent surviving child of the father. And because his mother, now 32, is taking care of him, she gets benefits too. That's why Social Security is in trouble.
Yeah, it's actually an interesting, it's a plausible scenario in these times.
Absolutely. Again, Viagra College Fund. Let's talk about a couple more basics of Social Security here. We talked about who gets these credits, only the worker, not a spouse. But The survivor benefit is 100% of what the deceased worker was either receiving at the time of death or was entitled to receive at time of death, including those delayed retirement credits. So that's why my number 2 rule, particularly for married couples, is their main goal in deciding how and when to collect Social Security benefits is, how do I maximize the survivor benefit? It's going to help them throughout their lifetime and after one of them dies. And it doesn't matter who dies first. The bigger benefit will continue as a survivor benefit. The smaller one will go away. Now, here's another important thing. I mentioned that survivor benefits and retirement benefits are 2 separate pots of money. And if you are entitled to both, let's say you're married and widowed, and you have your own retirement benefit on your own record, you can choose to collect one first and switch to another later if it would be worth more. And I'm going to give you 2 examples. One's from my family. I had one brother who died much too young, and when his widow turned 62 last year, she said to me, okay, what should I do? Should I collect Social Security on my record or on your brother's record? And I said, well, which is bigger? She said, oh, his is much bigger. So in her situation, she was 62. She was still working but not making a whole lot of money. I said, go ahead, collect your reduced retirement benefit on your own record now at 62. And when you get to your full retirement age of 66, the earnings cap goes away. The survivor benefits are worth 100% of what Bobby would have gotten. Switch to survivor benefit, you're going to have the biggest benefit the rest of your life. But let's say she was making a lot of money. She's a real estate agent. Maybe she sold a couple houses. She's making $100,000 now. I'd have a different recommendation. I would say, don't collect anything early. You're making too much money, you'll lose it all to the earnings cap. But when you get to 66, in this case, collect the survivor benefit, 100% of what Bobby would have gotten. Because while it's 100% of his benefit, it's frozen in time. It never gets any bigger than if she collected it at her full retirement age. It doesn't earn delayed retirement credits, but her own benefit does. So if she took her survivor benefit at 66, and deferred collecting her own retirement benefit until 70, it would be 32% higher. Right. So that's why it's complicated.
It can get complicated.
It can get complicated.
And understanding the basic rules is the key to being able to develop the creative strategy that works in your own situation.
Exactly. We have a couple more points to make here. This is my favorite. Collect on your ex. It's worth reiterating. If you were married at least 10 years, if you are not currently married, you are able to collect on your ex just as if you were still married. Now, the basic rules still apply. Yes, you can collect as early as 62, but your benefit's going to be reduced. And if you're entitled to your own benefit and a spousal benefit, anytime you collect before your full retirement age, Social Security must pay you your own benefit first, reduced for early claiming. And if a spousal benefit would be higher, they would layer that extra bit on top, also reduced for early claiming. But there's a better way for exes to get revenge. It is wait until your full retirement age of 66, and then, just as if you were still married, you can restrict your claim to spousal benefits only. Collect half of what your ex's benefit is, and wait until 70 to collect your own maximum benefit. Now, I suspect you might say, well, what happens if it was a nasty divorce? And maybe your ex said, I'm never retiring and you're never going to get a dime. Well, Congress thought that might happen. And only ex-spouses have this special right to claim independently. It says that in addition to being married at least 10 years and divorced, if you're divorced at least 2 years, you can collect on your ex's record even if she has not yet collected. You are independently entitled to collect. So keep in mind, yes, you can collect as early as 62. It's going to be permanently reduced. But if you wait till your full retirement age of 66, you can collect on your ex just the spousal benefit and let your own keep growing. This is going to be huge for divorced women, and it's going to save a lot of people from poverty, I think. Particularly those who keep working. Right. It's a good strategy. And if everything you just heard here makes you wonder, oh no, I claimed at 62, did I make a mistake? Can I do it over again? Maybe. There is a rule that if you claim Social Security benefits and change your mind within the first 12 months of claiming, you can actually withdraw your application for benefits. The trick is you got to pay back everything you've received.
Right.
And then you can start over at a later date, at a higher age, no harm, no foul, just as if you never collected. Now, unfortunately, if you miss that 12-month window, you can't do that. Right. But there is a backup plan. If you've missed the 12-month window and you wait until your full retirement age of 66, you can't withdraw your application and pay it back, but you can suspend your benefits. That means you would start earning those delayed retirement credits of 8% a year up until age 70. So let me give you an example. And maybe I claimed at 62 years old just because I could, and I got 75% of my promised benefit and thought that was great. And now that I'm 60, I'm thinking, wow, I really wish I had held out. If I suspend my benefits, now it means I'm not going to get anything.
Right.
But if I suspend my benefits, now I'm going to start earning 8% a year. Here's some high-level math. If you multiply 75% by 1.32%, you come out with 99%. It means you have effectively restored your full retirement age benefit.
If you can afford to go for 3 years or 4 years without that income.
Exactly. And this would be very valuable for a married couple who maybe the husband took benefits early at 62, not realizing that not only was his retirement benefit reduced, but he's condemning his widow to a smaller survivor benefit.
Right.
This would allow him to build up his benefit, which would also translate into a larger survivor benefit.
Right, that makes sense.
And my last point, I always love to go back to the Viagra College Fund, as we see so many older parents that if a parent is collecting Social Security retirement benefits and they have minor dependent children defined as those who are 18 or younger, or up to age 19 and still in high school, or a disabled child who was disabled before age 22, the child is also entitled to benefits. If the parent is alive, it's a 50% benefit. If the parent has died, it's a 75% benefit. So these are really important benefits. Everyone should be aware of them. Make your own decision. You know, I'm not saying it's right for everybody to delay, but you should give this the same respect as you would in deciding to buy a house or invest in your 401k or doing anything else that's going to have a significant financial impact on the rest of your life.
Absolutely. Now, you kept using the $2,000 a month benefit in most of your examples, which I appreciate because it makes the math a little bit easy.
It does.
Do you know what the maximum possible Social Security benefit is for the person who's been earning the maximum or making the maximum contributions to FICA over the years?
It's about $2,500 and change right now. It does go up each year. Just as the cost of living adjustments are applied to benefits and to the taxable wage base, it also boosts the amount of the maximum benefit.
Okay.
So if you're saying the maximum benefit is, I forget the exact numbers, let's say $2,535 or something right now, because of inflation, if you're retiring 5 years from now, that number is going to be much higher if you're one of those people that have been paying maximum benefits for the rest of your life. And here's another important point. Whether you make $117,000 a year, which for 2014 is the maximum taxable wage that funds Social Security, or $1 million a year, you're paying the same maximum FICA tax.
Right.
The tax that funds Social Security does not go above that taxable wage base. For 2015, it will be $118,500. However, all of your wages are taxed for the portion that funds Medicare.
Right.
So in that case, if you're making $1 million in wages, you're being taxed on that portion to fund Medicare.
Do you think politically it's possible that $118,000 cap will be raised to help fill the funding gap? Is that a strategy?
There is a lot of popular support for that. It comes down to, sure, tax the rich, why not? If you're making less than $117,000 a year, you probably think it's a great idea. And it's a small percentage of the working population, that it's between 5 and 10% that pay that maximum amount. You get a lot of concern, particularly from small businesses, because remember, the FICA tax is evenly split between the employer and the employee. So small businesses say, hey, I don't want to have to pay that extra piece. I tend to think there's not a lot of small businesses that have employees making more than $117,000 unless you're a medical practice or a law practice. Right. When the 1983 Social Security reforms were approved, back then the idea was that the taxable wage base would ensure that at least 90% of American wages would be taxed to fund Social Security. Mm-hmm. Because some wages are not taxed if you're contributing to a flexible spending account or various other reasons. Right. There's only about 83% of wages that are actually being taxed now to fund Social Security. Mm-hmm. If you would restore it to that 90% goal, mm-hmm. it would be closer to about $260,000. So I think, again, when we see Social Security reforms, that will be inevitable. They may not be tomorrow, they may be 2032. But I do think you'll see some sort of increase in the taxable wage base.
Right. That reduction from the 90% to what I think you said 83% now, isn't that also related to the greater disparity in income distribution in the United States?
Exactly.
We know that there's a bigger gap between the highest earners and the smallest.
And Social Security is a regressive tax in that people with lower incomes are paying the FICA tax on all their wages, right. and higher income people are not. But the benefits are also progressive in that if you are a lifelong low income worker, right. your replacement rate, the amount that Social Security is going to replace of your wages, is going to be higher. It's going to be 40 to 50% of your pre-retirement earnings. If you're a high income worker, it's going to be lower. It's going to be 25% or less.
Right.
So there is a certain equanimity there.
Right, right. Well, that's good to know. Is there anything else that we should know or be thinking about as we're trying to develop story ideas around Social Security strategies, future of Social Security? Any last words of wisdom that you want to offer?
Well, I think, first of all, people should realize there may be a smarter way to claim benefits, right. and educate yourself. There are lots of great public information. SSA.gov has a great website. AARP.org has a great consumer tool to help you estimate your benefits. I think it's very important for married couples to look at this as a household decision and make it accordingly. It's very important for divorced spouses who would qualify for benefits to be aware of this. And let me tell you a story. I met a woman not long ago, and we got to chatting, and she said she had retired early, and I said, oh, that's great. I love seeing financially independent women. And she said, oh, I was married, but that was a long time ago. I said, oh, really? How long were you married? She said, oh, 15 years, but that was a long time ago. And I said, do you realize you could collect Social Security benefits on your ex-husband? She goes, oh, no, that wouldn't work. He died. I said, do you know you could collect Social Security survivor benefits on your ex-husband? Oh, well, that wouldn't work. He remarried and had children. Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Here was a woman who was possibly ignoring maybe $2,000 a month of income she was entitled to. Wow. How many other people are out there? Right. I just think people have paid a lot in their paychecks year after year. I think they should know what they're entitled to and make the most of it.
I agree with you, but I'm guessing that the folks at the Social Security office have your picture on their dartboard.
I have heard that is a fact.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We're here with Mary Beth Franklin of Investment News. To all of our viewers, I'll encourage you to surf over to our website, www.nationalpress.org. Check out our future programs, make a donation, and know that you have our thanks for joining us today in the Evelyn Y. Davis studios at the National Press Foundation, where we are making good journalists better.